Hey guys, Jeremy from Lucky Hat Outdoors, and since I've moved to Massachusetts, almost every trip to the woods and to the water now is something a little bit different, and I'm running into species that I'm not familiar with, and I'm using techniques that are kind of new to me. So what I figured I would do after each trip, at least for the immediate future, is take some time to go over kind of the gear I used and the techniques that I used to in the previous video. So I'd like to start with a recent freshwater trip to a local mill pond here in Massachusetts. Really nothing fantastic about it, and as you saw from the video, I caught a bunch of little chain pickerel, a couple of largemouth, and one nice perch, and wading around in this pond. And I did all of it with the inline spinner. This is a rooster tail, and it started life as kind of a black and gold striped with a gold blade and black skirt. And I use these to some success for panfish and even crappie white perch back in Louisiana several years ago. And the gold and black combination seemed to really work the best with these. In Texas, I used the straight white with silver blade, or the kind of the orange and chartreuse, to really good effect with white bass and some panfish in the ponds there. So they tend to catch smaller fish, and at the time the pond I was going to had some trout. So I was kind of gearing myself down in the hopes of stumbling onto some trout, which didn't happen. So, in fact, you can see, I don't know if you can from this distance, but this is all torn up from the teeth on the pickerel. The rod is one of my newer ones. This is a Browning Airweight. Is that what it is? Airstream. It's a 6-foot ultralight. And you saw it a while back when I had my absolutely awful video where I went out and targeted bluegill. And it's spooled with a Shimano Sedona. I got several of these maybe 2 years ago in Texas, right before white bass season. These were put on sale for extremely cheap. They're not from Shimano's top of the line by any means. In fact, they're getting a little beat up. They're starting to show. I mean, they're from Shimano's blister pack line, so I don't expect them to last forever, and they're on my list to be replaced. But this particular one is spooled with 4-pound fluorocarbon, which the water is so much clearer here that I'm really leaning on fluorocarbon, at least fluorocarbon liters, but I'm trying out fluorocarbon versus mono just because it seems to be more invisible. And from what I'm hearing and read, is it has a lot less stretch. It reacts, it has sensitivity like braid, and a little bit of abrasion resistance in a crystal clear, almost invisible line. With this setup, with the ultralight rod, the small reel, and the lightweight line, you can cast these little 1/8 ounce spinnerbaits a pretty good ways. Downside is every fish you catch feels huge. I mean, the bass you saw in the video was not. He was fat, but he wasn't a big fish by any means. He wouldn't have been impressive on my regular rod and reel, but with this, it ups the game. And that's part of what makes ultralight fishing fun, honestly, is even a little perch, if he wants to give you a fight, he can with this gear. And I used it pretty heavily during the white bass season 2 years ago in Texas, you know, getting wading creeks and casting for white bass on this ultralight stuff. So I'm pretty excited about trying to get an opportunity to go after some trout once it cools down. But there you have it. That was the gear I used for that recent trip. As far as technique, I didn't really do anything. There wasn't a whole lot of technique involved. With these spinners, it's basically you cast them and retrieve them. There's no real method to it. You can just faster or slower. And used waders to access a lot more of the pond than you could access from the bank, which, I don't know. Honestly, I caught most of my fish from within casting distance of where you could have accessed from the bank, so I'm not sure that having the waders was any huge advantage. So, there you have it. I'm hoping to get this gear out a little bit later in the year, probably toward October, when the weather cools down, and actually go after some trout with the ultralight gear. But until then, I think I'm going to hang this up and switch to my bass gear and probably stay on the saltwater a little bit. So, There you go, guys. That's the gear from that last video from the freshwater mill pond.